Hello, and welcome to episode 21 of The Comic Conspiracy, a very late episode.
Woohoo, we can legally drink now!
So all that leftover beer from our midnight sale of Justice League number 1 and Flashpoint number 5, we can now drink, so yeah. Excellent. I shouldn't have used that picture of the animated gif of Superman drinking at the bar from Superman 3 for that episode, a handful of episodes ago, for a little tag on the site I should use for this episode, the legal episode.
No, we're okay.
We'll find something else for it.
Yeah.
All right, so what's happening, Brock?
Well, who are you?
Oh, I'm Ryan Higgins. Who are you?
I'm Brock Sager.
Hey, Brock.
All right, now that we got that out of the way.
Yeah. We basically are not going to talk about anything this week except for Flashpoint and Justice League because, really, there's no other news. We were planning to record on Monday. We ended up having to record the Geek Box on Monday because we were going to record a real quick episode on Tuesday here before our midnight sale of Flashpoint and Justice League. That didn't happen.
Yeah, but well, our listeners know that we don't do quick episodes.
Yeah, that didn't happen. So Wednesday, because I was here from 7 in the morning till 2 in the morning.
Yeah,
like 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah, you stayed to talk. I was like, I'm out.
Yeah, I went home and took like a 20-minute nap, halfway through the day in order to go walk my dog and feed my dog, and then I'm like, I'm going to take a nap, and I came back. And
meanwhile, I'm running errands and
pissing
you off.
It was a rough day, and then Wednesday, of course, was another 15-hour day or something. But yeah, no, ton of people came up for the Justice League in Flashpoint number 1 midnight sale. We had 56 people that came through the door at final count. I don't think I missed anyone, so that was good. That was amazing. We had a big line of people here right at midnight for the book, and yeah, a lot of fun.
Just went down the store and around the back issues.
Yeah, it was a good time, and I've talked to a handful of people that picked up the book, and yeah, everyone seemed to really enjoy it. So we'll be talking a lot Flashpoint and Justice League today. So I don't know. I think that's it.
We're done.
Anything else?
Cool. We're done. No.
2-minute episode.
2-minute episode.
What do you? Where should we start here? There's no point to talk about anything else. There's no other news. I mean, there would be other news, or there wouldn't be any other news to talk about if we recorded like Wednesday or Tuesday night after we read this. There's a little bit of other stuff to talk about, but we'll get to that at the end of the episode, or maybe save a little bit of it till next week. But Flashpoint number 5.
Flashpoint number 5 finishes off the alternate reality story.
So, for those of you that have not been following Flashpoint or paying attention or have any idea what we're talking about, a little backstory to everything. DC has decided to, much like back in the day during Crisis on Infinite Earths, to pretty much completely redo their continuity, restart all their books over. All their books start at number 1 next week, except for Justice League, which came out this week. New characters, new origins, new backgrounds, new stories, new costumes, new powers. Some are staying the same, but pretty much a lot of other stuff is different. Flashpoint was sort of the book that bridges the gap between the old universe and the new universe. We find out how this new continuity came about, kind of what caused it, and the characters involved. It's a Flash story, lots of time travel and alternate universes and things like that.
Which give most people a headache.
I love it, though.
I know you love it, but it gives most people a headache. This is almost like it's the J.J. Abrams,
Excuse me.
Take on DC.
Well, Flashpoint has that very much, that Age of Apocalypse feel, which was one of Marvel's big X-Men events back in the day of kind of alternate realities, time travel, things got screwed up, causes a different future. But we've seen this before, especially with Flash. We've seen this happen a lot with him. What's interesting is, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree with this, the main Flashpoint book, very different than the rest of the Flashpoint miniseries. Mm-hmm. The story of this world, of this war between Aquaman and Green Lantern, or Aquaman and Martian Manhunter. Martian Manhunter.
It's Emperor Aquaman and Wonder Woman.
Aquaman. Right. And Wonder Woman. I don't know where my brain is today.
Do you have a brain today?
No, not at all. This war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman, where this war came from, how it started, kind of what causes basically the destruction of this Earth, plays out in all these various miniseries tied in with the main Flashpoint book. But the Flashpoint book itself is sort of the Barry Allen from the quote-unquote regular DC universe, sort of wandering through this world that he created. But
he didn't know he created it.
Well, that Zoom created, that Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash, created.
Yeah.
I mean, we all knew this before the book even started, whether Barry did or not. He apparently doesn't really find out till the last issue, but big spoilers for Flashpoint. Although, I mean, there's not really big spoilers. This is pretty much common knowledge. I mean, everyone figured this was what the story was going to be.
Yeah.
Is that Barry Allen, who was the living embodiment of the Speed Force. I mean, he basically created the Speed Force, where all the super speeders get their powers from.
Say that 10 times fast.
All the super speeders get their powers from. In creating the Speed Force, there is an equal and opposite reaction, which is the reverse Speed Force, this is kind of Jeff Johns' explanation of where Zoom gets his powers from.
Which is kind of funny because you'd think the reverse of the Speed Force would be the Slow Force.
Right. Is that where the turtle gets his powers from?
Yeah,
The Flash villain, the turtle. So Barry, in turn, created Zoom. So everything that Zoom does is because of Barry. This has kind of been what was set up during Flash Rebirth, and now, especially in Flashpoint, that this destruction of the universe is basically Barry's fault. Although it's not. Zoom is pinning it on Barry. He's like, you created me way back in the day, whether you knew it or not. And if it wasn't for you. Yeah, but I mean, that's sort of all villains, you can say that. The Joker wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Batman.
Well, yeah, I mean, Flash needs his penultimate arch enemy, and Zoom is that arch enemy. But I think
it's always been Zoom.
No, I said
right.
That's what I said.
Right, but I mean, it's not like this is a new thing. Zoom's always sort of been.
No, he's always sort of been because he's the opposite Flash, and he's not slow, which I still don't understand. But
it's the reverse colors, not the reverse.
It's the connection. It's chaos needs order, yin yang, all that stuff. So, Flashpoint number 5. I mean, like you said, with the minis dive into this world, this Flashpoint world.
Right. That you never really see the world in the Flashpoint book itself.
You see glimpses of it in the Flashpoint book, and you don't really see what this world is about because, again, we're following one character in this book, which is Barry Allen, the Flash. So we see what's going on in this world from his point of view in this book. But to see this world, you really have to read the minis.
Right.
To kind of see what the changes they made were, where everything's going, and so on and so forth. So a lot of the Flashpoint minis I wasn't impressed with. I mean, they were okay. Some were just why. I mean, there were some good ones. The Batman... Night of Vengeance was good.
Aquaman and Wonder Woman I thought were essential to understand the war.
But I really enjoyed Dick Grayson, or Dead Man, and Flying Graysons. That one was fun. But other than that, I mean, nothing really substantially stood out, for me at least. I mean, a lot of these books are paralleling what's coming out with the 52, in the sense of, like, you have the Frankenstein and the Creature Commandos,
right, and reintroducing Grifter.
Yeah, reintroducing Grifter, and so we get kind of a glimpse of characters that are going to be in the in the new 52.
Right.
So, don't give me that look. I was trying to be nice. Let me mumble afterwards. So, my initial reaction after reading Flashpoint number 5, I wasn't impressed. It finished the story. It got out. It led us straight into what's going on now. But honestly, I really was not impressed with the whole Flashpoint, series, because the first book caught my interest. The second book caught my interest, even, though you laughed at the end of the second book.
I did.
But to me, it's like the third and the fourth book kind of didn't really accomplish anything. I didn't really feel... like, I don't even really remember what happened in those.
Well, the main focus of the Flashpoint books was Barry comes into this weird world. He's trying to figure out how to get out of it.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because, he basically just, no pun intended, runs through all these other storylines and comes out at the end, fights Zoom, and gets out.
Yeah.
So you really don't get a clear sense of what's going on in these books, which I like Flashpoint, but Flashpoint was his own thing. The minis were all pretty decent. I mean, I thought that's ranged from excellent to pretty decent. There was none that I thought were just awful. I liked them all to a degree.
I wasn't impressed with like the creatures, Frankenstein and the Creature Commandos. I wasn't really impressed with.
Yeah, I mean that's just going back to that's Grant Morrison's Frankenstein from Final Crisis, and bringing all that into.
I've read a couple of titles with them in it. The Superman Batman had them in it with the Blackest Night crossover issues. But I really wasn't impressed with that book. I also really wasn't impressed with Abensur either. It was okay, but yeah. In the end, the Flashpoint. I mean, it's you got some really cool imagery. You got this weird, freaky hooded lady that we'll talk about.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute.
You know, on that big double splash page where Barry's running through everything, and then I don't know. Can you clarify something for me, because
Sure can.
I was confused as shit. Because at some point in time, Barry's running.
We're flipping through the book here, so
Yeah,
we'll have to,
and then he's running. Okay, so he's going back to the treadmill,
okay.
right? So that's where he does the Doc Brown "Don't Meet Yourself"
Right,
thing.
right,
Okay. Now I get it.
Right.
So, and then we get the double splash page, which is basically telling us that we're merging Wildstorm, Vertigo, and DC.
Right.
Okay, and then there's this weird hooded lady in the background.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
So, one funny note, which you keep telling me I'm completely and utter bonkers for thinking this, but I think it's completely ridiculous, is that Barry wakes up and we get the same page we got at the beginning of Flashpoint. And then he runs to Batman to make sure everything's okay, and yet he doesn't notice that his costume is different.
Well, that's... we'll talk about that in a minute.
I know.
We'll talk about the back half of the book in a second.
But to me, it's kind of... I mean, I understand why he goes to see Bruce to make sure it's Bruce, but he didn't notice that things were kind of back to the same but slightly different.
Well, he doesn't notice because the world is different.
Yeah, the world's different, but he still has the memories.
But he doesn't.
Yeah, he does.
He, much like Crisis on Infinite Earths, he remembers that he was in this weird world, but this is the quote-unquote normal world he's returning to.
Yeah, it's the quote-unquote normal world, which has been altered.
So he does... It was wrong, is what is...
So the old world that we've been reading is wrong.
Well...
That's what you're saying.
That's sort of what it implies.
Okay, so basically, just so you comic listeners can understand this, DC is telling you everything you've read up until this point is wrong. Why are you still reading comics?
Well, you're sort of.
That's kind of slapping us in the face there.
Shut up.
No, you said it. I didn't. I'm just pointing it out.
Let's go through the first half of this book.
Are we actually going to go by page by page?
No. Let me give you my take on the first half, and then I'll re-explain the second.
Yeah, because
half
my opinions don't matter.
Exactly.
You're a dick.
So, first half of Flashpoint, is finishing up kind of the Flashpoint story. And now, look, if you're not into time travel, if you're not into weird alternate realities, if you're really not into the Flash versus Zoom fights, I mean, of course, this book's not going to do a lot for you. For me, I mean, I did like it a lot. I thought it was a fun series. I'm a really big Flash fan. I thought this was cool. It was cool to see Zoom hopefully gone. Well, I'm going to say hopefully gone forever, but
he can't be.
Why?
Okay, hold on. If you like, that's something you said about if you don't like alternate reality stories or time travel. If you like alternate reality stories, read the Flashpoint minis. If you like time stuff,
read
Flashpoint.
Right.
If you like both, read them all. If you don't like any of them, you don't need to read any of them. If Zoom dies in the alternate universe and Barry goes back, changes everything, Zoom never dies.
Here's where we need to make the distinction that the new books are not... See, this is where it gets really tricky. And we'll actually... Hold on. We'll talk about this when we get to the... Hold on. All right. Hold on.
I'm going to whip out my Back to the Future time travel guide.
And this is a very strong point of contention that's going to be... it's going to affect a lot of titles. So we'll get into this second. Hold on.
Except Batman.
So the first half of the Flashpoint book, like I said, I thought it was a lot of fun. It was cool. It was cool to see kind of a nice final battle between Flash and Zoom, even though they've had final battles before. Yeah. But this is probably the final battle for now. I mean, if they're going to kill off Zoom in a badass way too, and Batman, Thomas Wayne coming and skewers him. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah. And Thomas Wayne, who knew he was so awesome?
Grant Morrison, obviously.
So I mean, this is a real fun story. I would highly recommend it. Now, the part we get to, and I think this is something that's going to be difficult for people to really grasp, because so much of comic books in DC especially is continuities. Things have to work together. Oh, well, this doesn't work with this doesn't work with this. You can look at Flashpoint as a crisis event. You can look at it as another part of continuity. But I think the way DC is looking at it, and this is something that's that is going to you're going to see in a lot of the new books, they're really looking at this event, or at least this is how I take it, and this is how I'm looking at it. It's not that it's a new continuity. It's not that things can go back. It's not that things are different. It's not that this other world exists. It is sort of along the lines more of Marvel's Ultimate Universe, where it's not that it's a parallel universe. It's a completely separate thing with no connection. Now, I know Ultimates even had travel into the regular books, and they brought the Marvel Zombies and stuff like that into the regular universe. But that aside, DC's intent, from how I perceive it, is that the books coming up are not supposed to have any connection to the older books. While there is similar stories, this is basically just the Flashpoint is sort of a throwback to the fans to be like, look, we're going to kind of do this for you. Here's your little connection. Flash is kind of fading memory of it, but really from Justice League 1 and on, this is a whole new.
This is the ultimate DC.
Sure, to a degree. This is a whole new thing.
It gives them an easy out.
Well, now, we've talked about this before, right? If they want to if DC wants to put the continuity, make these books connect, it's like Barry sort of built this universe by remembering all the different things. There's this two-page splash page, where he's running back, and this mysterious hooded figure says, Barry's talking about seeing 3 different timelines that he's trying to merge together, and she says, all must stand together, the timelines must become one. You can help me fix that Barry Allen, but at a cost. And of course the cost is his mother. Mm-hmm. But the main cost is that the old, broken world, this fractured timeline between the DC Universe, Wildstorm, and Vertigo, you're basically losing all that continuity. Mm-hmm. So it's a bit of a meta commentary. You can say, oh, hey, the woman is Raven, or she's Donna Troy as Dark Angel, which one of my customers said. But this exact same way of thinking means it's not, because you could tell DC is really trying to do something totally different here. My guess was, if I had to guess if that character was a character from the DC universe, I could see it being Pariah, who was the guy in Crisis on Infinite Earths, like a new version of Pariah. He was the guy
Scales guy?
No, he was the guy in Crisis on Infinite Earths that was there at the destruction of each of the worlds.
The hooded guy.
Right. Well, yeah, he had like that hood, and he had that weird crazy hair.
Yeah.
But he was going on. He was there at the destruction of every world. Mm-hmm. This hooded figure is kind of watching Barry rebuild this world, and in a lot of the upcoming books, she's in a lot of the background.
She's in every first issue.
Well, we don't know that yet.
It is.
We do not know that yet. She's in every book that they've previewed art from. I assume she's in every first issue.
She's in every first issue. It's kind of like this "Where's Wally West?" Barry Allen, "Where's Waldo?" kind of thing.
So I can see DC leaving some strings that if they want an out, here's their way back. Well, they can do this.
And that's the thing is with this being an Ultimate DC and kind of doing an Ultimate DC across the board, unlike what Marvel did, it does give you an out. So you can go back to Action Comics 905 like nothing ever happened.
No, but see, here's the thing. I implore readers to not read Action number 1 and say to yourself, well, I can make this jive with the old continuity. That's not the way you're supposed to look at these. Well, this is a clear break from this. Is the stories starting over. Mm-hmm. If they want an event to happen, they will mention it. If not, pretend like it never happened. You really need to look at these books differently, because I know fandom. I know fandom is going to try to go like, oh well, I can make. Why is Cyborg on the JLA? Because he shouldn't be this age, and this character shouldn't be here, but this character and this character should have slept together. But that doesn't happen. It's gone.
Did you just say this character slept together with
sure,
this
Sure.
I think what it is it's one of those things where...
Did Nightwing and Starfire almost get married in this universe? It's not important.
No. And that's the thing is it's going back to what they said, at the panels and what they've been saying all along, is that who these characters are, kind of.
Right.
We're going back and revisiting some origins to kind of tweak them a little bit, fix them up, dust them off, bring them out of the closet, whatever. Some things aren't changing. And I think that that's a little bit of a difficulty for some people because look at Batman, right? That 52 video you've been showing everybody where the guy's sitting there bitching and the first thing he bitches about, which is, you know, the renumbering, and you said, that's you, that's you. Yeah. You know, everyone's got collars, all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And then the girl asks, well, what about, oh, nothing's really changing with him.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is I think that I understand why nothing's changing with Batman. Grant Morrison has set up the Batman world, and it's amazing.
Green Lantern's not changing either.
And that's the thing, is Green Lantern's not changing either. But I think if you look at how these books are coming out, right, where you have Justice League, which is based time-wise in the past, action based in the past,
right?
You know, where we get these past views. So it's cool that we're going to see Hal Jordan as a ring bearer, right, in Justice League, but we're not going to see him as a ring bearer in Green Lantern,
right? And everything I've read, there was an interview with Johns on, was it G4? I think I can't remember. He said, you know, this is very much everyone's up to speed. We acknowledge everything that happened, but we are going to get everyone up to speed. These early arcs are very introductory. We're kind of giving people the backstory on Sinestro and the Corps. You know, and the Guardians. You really see JLA is going to be very much an origin story, getting the band together for the first time. Things are going to be a little bit different, as we've already seen. We'll talk about JLA in a minute here. But you know, I think Flashpoint did what it needed to do.
No, it did.
It gives the hardcore fans a thing to kind of come back to and be like, ooh, can we figure this out? You know, this woman, whoever she is, this hooded, cloaked figure, is obviously going to play some importance.
Well, it's almost like it's the Watcher from the Marvel universe.
Sure, she's going to play some importance in the future of the New 52, of the new DC universe, whether it's right away, whether it's their first mega event, whether it's something really simple, and she's just going to kind of say, like, okay, the new universe is built, I can now shut down the old one and we'll never return to it. I mean, she could be death for all we know. You know, like, who knows where they're going with this. I think it's interesting that they're going to try to set this up, but their whole focus from here on out is we're not looking back. We're telling new stories. We have new villains, new characters. We're not reusing classic character or classic villains, especially for the first arc. And this is what made, I think, DC and Marvel, and we'll talk about this more when we talk about JLA too, feel kind of dated. You know, I like the old stories. I know the old stories, so I'm able to understand them and appreciate them. But for new fans, I can really see how that could be off-putting. Constant references to old material.
Well, look at Justice League, the last volumization of Justice League, where we got the roll call issues that were completely packed with, I mean, was it the Red Tornado or Tornado's Path was the first story, where there's like a ton of characters. I mean, the cover had that whole spread behind, with everybody standing there, you know, one of the poster covers, so to speak. And then after that first arc, we kind of introduced some Legion characters, which Legion has so many characters that they've established that in every issue, it's like a roll call, like the credits. You have to have that little blurb, telling who this person is, where they're from, what their power is, which is great because it helps you read through Legion and start to just get these characters. The bubbles pretty much go out once you get who these characters are. But once we got past the first few story arcs in Justice League of America, the last one, then we get the Royal Flush Gang. Then we get these secondary stringers because Trinity's going on and Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman are gone. And, we get all of these weird kind of characters that we've never seen before, Well,
I'll tell you, this has happened back with the original Justice League book. This happened with the Grant Morrison Justice League book. And this happened with the new Justice League book. When you take Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman off the JLA, you need to keep the big characters on the JLA. This happened with Avengers too, when they the brown jackets and they got rid of Cap and Thor and Iron Man. Like, no one cares anymore. And look what happens. They bring back, here comes Grant Morrison with the original League again. Here comes Brad Meltzer with the original League. Here comes Kurt Busiek and George Perez with the original Avengers. Awesome. People are psyched. And then they slowly rotate them out. It's like, no, you have to keep the big guys on the team. I don't want a Jeff Johns, Jim Lee Justice League book featuring, like, I mean, like, who was there towards the end of the Justice League before he came on? Who was it? It was a Firestorm, Vixen, Zatanna, and Red
Dr.
Tornado, and Dr. Light. Like, I mean, I like these characters, but who the hell's going to buy this book?
Yeah.
Where's Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Green Lantern? Like, you have to keep those guys.
Well, and I would even throw Martian Manhunter and Aquaman in that list.
Well, I mean, you need the big five. Martian Manhunter, they're going to switch out for Cyborg. Martian Manhunter's going to be on Stormwatch. Like, I'm cool with that. That's fine. But, you know, you need to keep at least a few of those guys around. They don't have to be in every arc, but they need to be there.
Well, they're the core of
They don't have to be the focus of every arc,
No, and, I mean, they're the core of the team, and they're also the core of the DC Universe. So, you know, that book needs to be a flagship. It needs to have these characters, you know, even if they're not consistent, even if it's like, well, Batman's off saving Gotham again, we have to do something.
There's no reason that you can't have Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman in the books, because continuity shouldn't matter to the degree that you are killing one of your linchpin titles in order to have a character do something in another book. Superman walking across America. Okay, I like Grounded. I thought Grounded was all right.
No, it wasn't bad.
It didn't need to be 12 issues.
No, the first few
all right.
Straczynski issues were good, but once it picked up with the other writers following Straczynski's plot, it wasn't as good as it first started. But, I mean, it wasn't bad.
But you can absolutely have Superman in every issue of Justice League. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
right?
no, it's like the Superman-Batman title.
Right.
Like, this book just is stories of Superman and Batman.
When does it take place? You don't.
Nobody cares. It's a story about Superman and Batman. Right. And that's the thing is, you know, I understand that they're going for that feel from Superman and Batman, but I think for, you know, the readership that's there, it's jarring because for us it's kind of like, yeah, we know. Come on, move it on. You know,
but we don't know.
Well, no, we know these characters. That's the thing is see,
I don't think we do. This feels, and now, so I guess this is a good way to move into Justice League. So for Justice League #1, the one thing I've been telling people, and I had so many people respond, like on Twitter and on Facebook and in the store, and I mentioned this. Justice League #1 feels, and now this is going to sound insulting when I say it, but it's not. It feels like a Marvel comic.
Well, exactly. I mean, the regular copy was gold, and the digital copy was blue, so it's like X-Men like blue and gold. No. Who drew that? Oh, right, Jim Lee. Yeah. And how many issues did he run on that?
Couple,
you know, like 3 or 4. So that's what we can expect from Justice League.
No. My rationale for this. So Justice League #1 picks up 5 years ago. Everyone's probably read the preview pages by now. Batman's being hunted through the street. Batman is hunting something, which it's a parademon. It so clearly was a parademon. I don't know how no one caught that.
Well, the thing is it's difficult, especially with the 6 pages with a couple panels left out. It literally looked like Croc.
It did. It looked like Killer Croc. But it's clearly a parademon. Reading this is clearly a parademon.
Clearly reading this, you know, after the explosion on the Raw and there's wings now. Okay,
not even that. Even at the beginning.
Well, even
I don't know.
And also because the inking is lighter.
I guess. Yeah.
Like in this, the inking is lighter than in those ones, so it was a little bit easier to kind of see the color, you know, distribution. Because to me, it looked like Croc running around with a little hood on, and he had these weird goggles. I'm like, well, Croc could have goggles. I don't know, you know.
Yeah. Well, so it starts off with Batman chasing a parademon, which, if you're familiar with the original DC comic stuff, parademons are one of they're the stormtroopers of Darkseid. Darkseid's big cosmic threat guy.
Yes, which we're going to keep that part. The parademons, we're keeping that.
What?
You said we're not remembering old stuff, but we're keeping the parademons.
Well, you're still going to have Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Krypton.
It's a joke.
You're keeping. I'm sure the Joker and Lex Luthor will show up at some point as well.
Well, duh. So, I mean, they've already been solicited on the covers. So
they're not in the story though.
On which one?
You're talking like Joker's on the cover detective, but I don't think he's in the book.
Are you sure?
I'm almost positive. The words Joker and Lex Luthor have not been mentioned once in any of the solicitations. At least not that I saw.
Well,
if I missed it, I missed it. But no, they are starting new stories, new characters, new villains in all the books. Again, it's to move forward.
No, and I understand they're moving forward. But again, back to the point. So it's with the old readership, we're kind of already there. Like Batman being hunted in Gotham, we know that. We've gotten that. We know that whole Batman, Dark Knight, so on and so forth. So for the readers, it's one of those things where it's these titles, if they're not coming out on time, I think this is another thing.
They're going to. They have to. DC's already said nothing is going to ship late.
I know, but that's the thing is
I have to believe them.
That's where they're going. That's where they're going to keep the old readers. Is if these don't come out on boom, 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 you're going to see a lot of people go, well, I don't care anymore.
So what DC has mentioned numerous times is that they're not worried about story arcs or trade paperbacks anymore. The first arc of Justice League is probably going to be a bit long because they're going to have to kind of get everything set together. All the other books, they've mentioned numerous times, we are writing for single issues. We are writing for cliffhanger endings. We are not writing for trade paperbacks. We are not padding. We're not stretching out our stories. The first arc of Justice League is going to be a big story. I'll give them that. They're going against Darkseid. It's going to be a huge event. It's going to take a while. They're going to work a new character probably every issue because it's a team book. I'm willing to give them that, but everything else is going to be a little different. I don't want to judge the whole DC Universe reboot off of just Justice League #1.
No, don't.
It's going to be different.
Because Justice League is in the past.
Right. So, get past the preview pages. God damn it. So the first few pages are Batman chasing a parademon, which is the Darkseid's big bad.
Yeah.
And then in comes Green Lantern, who this is their first meeting, and Green Lantern is reacting to Batman like, holy crap, you're not just an urban legend, you're a real guy. Mm-hmm. They defeat the parademon. They're trying to figure out what this Darkseid thing is the parademon's talking about. And they're like, well, we have to go find this other alien that's in Metropolis named Superman. We have to go there because, well, if this is an alien threat, we should talk with him.
They didn't defeat him. He blew himself up.
Well, whatever.
I just want you to be.
And is, Superman's about to throw down with Batman. He comes in, kicks their asses, and he's like, all right, let's do this. Why are you guys coming after me? Who are you and why are you coming after me?
Yeah, I mean, that's the main story running through is the
right.
team up of Batman and the first team up of Batman and Green Lantern.
Right.
And, there's some tension there, and then we go to introduce Superman. But in the middle of that, we segue to seeing
Cyborg.
What's his last name?
Stone.
Vic Stone. And you'll see the hooded lady in the stands.
Yeah, there's
the hooded lady we talked about in Flashpoint.
So Vic Stone is Cyborg, who is one of the founding members of the Teen Titans. In this, I mean, they're kind of going back again, making him a little bit.
Did you notice what team he played for?
Ford.
The Ford Titans.
Nice. Yeah, so they're basically going through, and Vic's going through to they're trying. They want to make him get him signed up for a scholarship and all that because he's playing football and kicking ass, and you find out that his father's not there. So in the original comics, he's hurt in an accident, and his father, who's like a cybernetics expert, makes him into the cyborg.
Yeah.
And he hates his father because he did this to him, although it made him a hero. He hates him.
Lex does show up here.
You see LexCorp, right? But
Lex is obviously still here, but we haven't heard mention of what's going to happen with him. But yeah, we see Vic Stone, you see the hooded lady, and then Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, Mr. Cocky goes, "Oh, I'll go in and detain him, Batman. You wait out here," and gets basically his ass handed to him. And then Superman comes out and says, "About to throw down with Batman."
Yep.
So I thought it was kind of funny that it was Green Lantern's going, "So you have superpowers?" "No." "So you're just a guy walking around like leather?" And then and then Superman reiterates facts. "So what can you do?"
Yeah.
It was a little funny, but we'll see.
So this is, like I said, this feels fresh. It feels like a fresh take on these characters. They definitely feel younger. Mm-hmm. Even Batman feels younger. Hal is very cocky, very, this is a version of Hal they kind of mentioned, but we haven't really seen, even in John's Green Lantern book and during Secret Origin and all that. We don't see him quite like
that. Hal was, he had gone through Parallax and
in Secret Origin
and all that stuff.
Even Secret Origin, which would be before his appearance here.
Yeah.
This is definitely a bit of a take. I did read some interview with Jeff Johns where he said, something along the lines of, I'm used to the big continuity and the big story arcs. This is a different change of pace for me because I'm having to go much smaller.
Yeah.
And I can really feel that. And it has that street level feel. Even with Superman and Green Lantern, it has a much more street level feel, much like a lot of the Marvel characters, than their regular DC counterparts.
Well, when you said when we talked right after we read these, you had said that it felt like Marvel, and we had mentioned that before. And after you said that, I was thinking, and I was like, you know what? It does feel like the Heroes for Hire book that I just read.
What?
Well, that's what the Justice League felt like. Because you you said, Heroes for Hire by Abbott and Lanning has been great. Pick up the first trade. I picked up that first trade, and that first story arc really kind of reads, like you said, like this, where, it follows a few more characters than this one did, but we kind of get that introduction feel. Well, and that kind of.
Well, it's funny because how often, if you were to really go back and look through the different books, how often would Green Lantern be standing on the ground in front of a building? Very infrequently.
When do the angels touch the earth?
Right. Very infrequently. So from this first issue, it appears that DC is literally grounding their characters, which I don't think is a bad idea.
No, I think you're right.
I think DC, I like the big splashy superhero stuff. I love the way over the top mythology. Superman is a god, basically all this type of stuff. Things like Grant Morrison did in All-Star Superman, but at the same point, I understand. Readers and your general audience react better, and we've seen this in the movies, with Spider-Man and Captain America than they do with Thor and Green Lantern. Now, it's not to say a Kick-Ass Green Lantern or Thor movie can't be made, and I enjoyed both of those movies, but your average viewer, your average reader, your average human can interact or can understand the interactions of other quote-unquote humans, regardless of what Cap or Spider-Man is, than these gods or godlike beings. And so it's a bit easier. And I think in the new Superman movie, we're going to see a much more grounded Superman, which I think they understand they needed.
Well, that's what we kind of got from the original Superman, was we did get a kind of grounded Clark Kent with a spat. Clark Kent was more grounded.
First movie or original comics?
Movie.
Right. The first movie, that whole tagline, you'll believe a man can fly, because he does it so infrequently.
Yeah.
And especially in the old comics, I'm talking the original Golden Age comics, he didn't fly at all.
No,
right?
He jumped.
And we're going to see that in Grant Morrison's Action Comics, where he's not quite at that same power level. We're kind of depowering Superman a bit again, bringing in more, greater threats, have him actually, there's a chance.
But this is his learning
Superman
process.
Won't be the father figure anymore, which, as much as I like that idea, but I understand why they want to change that. So I think I would be okay with a split DC, basically a DC and an Ultimate DC universe. I think we talked about this a lot when this was the stuff was first coming up. But I can understand that DC would want to shed that mentality and really do something different. If you go back and read the books after Crisis on Infinite Earths, I think that was their attempt. But Superman was still 35 years old. That is a hard sell to a younger audience that is slipping away and slipping away. I've talked with a number of people on Twitter, a number of people from the podcast, listeners and people local that are like, hey, I'm going to check this out. I've never read comics, and I'm 20 years old. Yeah. I've heard from a few people who were like, I haven't read comics in 20 years. So this is, it'll be interesting to see how this works for DC.
Well, it's one of those things where you were talking about their gods, where they're finally kind of being grounded and so on and so forth. And, comic books have gone through, the ringer in ups and downs with society, in the sense of, you're talking about Golden Age comics where, we are out of a depression, we're trying to get out of a depression. We're in a war. We're, getting out of a war. So, all of these
sounds familiar, huh?
Yeah. So all of this stuff is going on. And the readership that we have is this young generation growing up with, no money for food, very, very downtrodden. So you have kind of these icons to look up to, these, Superman defends for justice and so on and so forth. And then when the comic books, developed in the Silver Age to...
Well, they got fantasy.
They got fantasy-esque, where it's we can't have realistic things going on because it's going to, taint innocent minds and blah, 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 blah. And then once the late 60s, early 70s come around, then we get everybody's on drugs anyway, so let's just write about it, right? Yeah. So, it's...
We sort of swung back to that super PC era, though.
Exactly. It seems kind of like we're... And then the 80s was this kind of, we want to get back to superheroes. We want to get back to, what they were. But we kind of did in some aspects, but not really. And then the 90s was just a blur of virtually the same thing. And now, this generation of comics...
A lot more self-reflecting, A lot
more self-reflecting, a lot more contained. Like Marvel is, like you said, very grounded. Like people can relate more to Marvel because they're more street level.
Yeah.
Whereas DC has always been for the past 10 years or so kind of out in space, out in
you get
crises and all that stuff.
You get the post-crisis universe where they grounded their characters and they slowly drifted away.
Yeah.
You get Infinite Crisis where they sort of had these godlike characters. Identity Crisis. We have these godlike characters in this very human-like setting. So I think that's why I liked Identity Crisis so much, because it was having Superman stand inside a living room was very out of place for Superman.
Well, and even seeing that very, very, like, I honestly preferred the funeral sequence in Identity Crisis to the funeral sequence in Death of Superman.
Sure.
Like, to me, the funeral sequence in Identity Crisis felt real.
Yeah.
Whereas the one with Superman felt like we were, and this might sound horrible and no relation to Superman whatsoever, but it was like watching a dictator or a king or someone be
that was
parade, like Abraham Lincoln is taken from here to there.
That was your Princess Di.
Yeah, it's like Abraham Lincoln Wake, Princess Di Wake, where we see kind of these, it's more of a drawn out kind of show,
right.
Whereas this brought more of a personal feel to it, and they didn't look completely and utterly ridiculous in their costumes,
right.
Standing there, mourning the death of Sue.
Yeah.
So I think that comic books are trying to, and DC's trying to do that, where they're trying to kind of merge these ideas and stuff like that, where, like you said, Johns said in that interview, he has been writing big, grand, and now he has to write small and contained, and it's going to be a challenge for him, and we'll see how he does.
It's not like you're not going to have. I mean, you're going to have Green Lantern books. You're going to have
them. Yeah,
but I think it's going to be. You shouldn't lose your Blackest Nights and your Sinestro Corps War stuff and your Infinite Crisis. I still want to see that stuff to a degree, but not at the cost of the future of DC Comics or comics in general. I think you can build up to those if you don't mind rebooting again in 20 or 25 years, which is honestly probably what they'll have to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's, like we said, they've built kind of in this whole this whole door that they can go out of, which is fine. And no offense, but know your exits.
Sure, of course, you have to.
Wherever you are, know your exit strategy.
Yeah.
Know how to get out. I mean, but it's one of those things where I think it's really early on. I mean, it's the hardest thing I think is we just have Justice League.
Wait, you're trying to project it's 52 books on one title.
Well, and that's the thing is it's a title in 5 years ago,
right?
Jim Lee has still got it. I mean, the artwork looks amazing. Scott Williams did the inks.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. Though, this creative team of Johns, Lee, and Williams, awesome. But it's one of those things where it's like you said, it's going to take a few issues for us to get, going.
Yeah.
This isn't the express train in Europe. This is the steamer in America.
Well, the Justice League, this group on the front becomes the team in 5 or 6 issues or whatever it is. I mean, this, and I think this Action Comics, you sort of don't need to worry about the past. Again, DC is trying to build the future, and so for this, you can this can be a bit of a slow burn. But where the slow burns can't be is you need these big cliffhanger endings. You need these big story arcs right from the get-go for all the DC titles when they come out.
Well, and you have to keep it going.
Right.
That's the other thing is, I mean, look at the titles that we have coming. Action is before Justice League. Mm-hmm. So let's just say 10 years ago. All-Star Western is even further.
But that's All-Star Western is its own thing.
But it's its own it's its own thing. But I think, DC is trying to take, all the books that right now are being written at around the same time period, which was the old stuff was written all around the same time. So what I think they're doing is to alleviate the strain on keeping kind of like a continuity across all the titles while everything's going on. Having some titles that, work at a different time period.
Yeah, well,
it breaks it up and it kind of gives a way to kind of play around with stories in the sense of, Blackhawks Is it Blackhawks?
Or Blackhawks and Men of War. I mean, those are all modern too.
Those are all modern too, but it's one of those things where, those titles might say, well, we're going to go do a story here that references to something that happened in Justice League. And
here's the thing. From everything I've heard, there's no crossovers.
No crossovers?
They're trying to keep the books as solitary as they can, keep the books together. I mean, clearly you're going to have something like Superman,
it's
Supergirl,
not necessarily
and Superboy.
Crossovers. I'm saying more along the lines of like events, like something that happened in All-Star Western, like some medallion gets lost.
No.
And so on and so forth.
From everything I've heard, they are not doing that.
They're not doing any of that?
No, not to start, because they want
Well,
the
no,
books
I didn't
to
say
stand on their own.
I didn't say when it started. I'm saying like down the road.
Oh, of course they'll cross over at some point. It's all this woman, this mystical woman from Flashpoint. I mean, she's going to be involved in something, but yeah, we don't know. Yeah, I mean, overall, Flashpoint, I thought it was a good read. It's a good kind of goodbye to the old books. It's a cool little side story. I think it's definitely worth checking out, especially if you like Flash or Age of Apocalypse. Personally for me, Justice League was a great start. I want so much more. I just want this book to be out every day, let alone every week or month.
Well, and I think that's the thing is like a lot of people have that mentality.
And we get a long way for number 2 because it's a week 3 shipping book, so we're not getting it till week 3 of October.
Oh, jeez.
So because they bumped it up in the schedule to be the first title to come out. So
why'd they do that?
Because they wanted to lead with Jim Lee and Jeff Johns. Yeah.
I mean, it's
and to probably give them another week, 2-3 weeks of buffer time. But no, I mean, I think if you're never a comics, why are you listening to this podcast? Unless you just like us from the Geek Box, or you're my girlfriend. No, my girlfriend's read all sorts of comics.
My girlfriend doesn't listen to that.
Good. No, I don't know. She wouldn't. Have you got to read anything past Fables?
She wants to read the hardcovers, so it's like I have to wait until. So
okay.
It's like I think she's technically on the 3rd hardcover, but I haven't bought her the 2nd one yet. She's like, "Well, I'll go back and reread it." I'm like,
"No, don't do that."
I'm like, I gotta wait to get the hardcovers for her, so it's like she hasn't quite read it yet, but.
Yeah, I mean, I think Justice League is a great point. If you've never read any DC books, jump in. And you know who Superman is, you know who Batman is, you know who Green Lantern are. But, there's different takes, and it's a cool little fun first issue, fun little romp with Batman and Green Lantern. We're going to have, at least for the next month, I can't see not having a majority of every podcast being about the new 52 books because... I mean, this is just such a big part of what's coming up. So,
well, yeah, and not
the biggest event in comics. I actually heard an interesting quote, and either Rob Liefeld said it or he retweeted it, and I don't remember which. So this may be credited to Rob Liefeld. I don't know whom, but he said someone had said Justice League isn't an event comic; it's a comics event. Like this isn't just your event comic used for sales opportunities, for crossovers and blah, blah, blah. Like, this is actually the real deal. Like, this is the formation of Image Comics. This is the...
Don't say that. Don't jinx it. Don't jinx it.
I'm just saying.
Don't jinx it.
That was one of the biggest events in comic history.
It was one of the biggest events in comic history, and it was one of the biggest bombs in comic history.
We have hindsight.
Initially.
Right, we have hindsight, so that's helpful. This is like, the launch of Spider-Man #1. This is like the launch.
I don't think calling it an event is calling it an event is a marketing ploy.
That's what I said. It is not an event comic. An event comic is your Fear Itself and your Flashpoints and stuff like that. This is a comics event.
Yeah, no, I mean...
This is a defining
I wouldn't even call it a comics event, because a comic event is like San Diego.
This is a defining moment in modern comic history.
It's DC is issuing in a new era. It's not an event, it's an era of comics is what they're trying to do. It's not an event. An event is something that has an end.
No.
This is a new era.
Sure.
So, I mean, I understand the logic behind it, with, the wording and stuff, but it's a comics era. It's not a comics event, because a comics event is something that is going to end. And if this is going to end, they better have, Action 905 on my shelf.
What about Action 1000?
I want issue number 1000, not 1000th issue. So, sorry. bitter till the end because I have to do your back issues. So, but yeah, I mean, for me,
have we hit the end of the modern age? Is this
to be honest? This
is the new thing? Do we go from Crisis to now? Is that the defining moment?
Do we? I mean, negate all of modern comics? No.
No, but I mean, if you look at comic history, you have the Golden Age, which roughly ends, Flash with Showcase number 4 for Springs of the Flash.
Yeah.
You have the Silver Age, which basically starts there, goes through. I mean, people will put it at Conan number 1 for Marvel because that was one of the first major successful big things, right? And then I mean, you can draw that Bronze Age. People usually draw the Bronze Age. Through like Giant Size number 1 a couple years later, maybe a little bit past that.
Yeah.
Giant Size X-Men number 1. Sorry. And then you're basically at the
Bronze
modern
Age.
age.
The Bronze Age ends in '79.
No. The Bronze Age does not have a very specific cutoff date like some of the other ones.
Is that why it's brown? It kind of just fades out.
Yeah. I mean, people have always kind of said, what do we call these ages? Is it the Platinum Age because of all the foil covers? Is it the Image Age? Did it end? Does a new age start with Image? Does a new age start?
And I think that honestly, modern comics, because your definition of modern comics is anything that's from the 80s, 90s, and today.
Right.
And if you look at how long a comic era lasts, it's only about 20 years.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Do we go from 70s to Crisis, 70s to 86, and just call 86 the cutoff point?
Yeah.
Do we go from Crisis to now? Do we go from Crisis to Image? Do we go from...
Well, I think if we're going to call it, we can't call it the Platinum era. If we're going to break the beginning of the modern era down, it'd be the Shiny era, right? It'd be that shiny object, gotta have it era.
Would it be now the low sales era?
Low prints, low sales.
Yeah.
I think this is issuing in a new era of comic books, and I wouldn't be surprised if this does set the bar a lot higher, and not just at DC, but at Marvel, at Image, at IDW, at Dark
the independent
Horse.
companies are their own thing. This is a Marvel affecting.
No,
practice.
This is a Marvel affecting practice, but I think that, look at Image. Image has their 2 strong running titles, Walking Dead and Invincible. Those
Morning Glories.
They have Morning Glories too.
They have a handful of other.
They have a handful of other stuff, but
they've launched
they're
a ton of garbage onto the market in the last handful of months.
And,
they hit fire with a few books in a row, and then all of a sudden it's like I counted 18 new books in the last 3 months, new number 1s. I'm not supporting. There's no way I can't support them. No one wants them. There's too many of them.
Well, and that's the thing is there's too many of unknowns.
There's not another Morning Glory in that batch.
Yeah. So it's but it will raise a bar to them on some level, not as the level it's Marvel. But yeah, Marvel's going to have to step up something because as of the past few years, Marvel has not been what they've should be.
One of the major things, we're not going to talk about it now. We'll talk about it next week when we have actual regular episode.
Yeah, which we'll put off till the next week and the next week.
No. We'll actually record on Monday. So you're going to have 2 episodes in 3 days. There's been all sorts of second prints, third prints, reprints. Every book is selling out. We have not found the ceiling for these book sales yet. Everyone thought the ceiling of a book was under 100,000 copies. We're talking close to 300,000 copies, and I don't even think we've hit the ceiling yet. So we'll talk about that a lot next week.
The numbers. You still haven't sold out.
No, but my numbers. If every store if every store in the U.S. alone ordered in their equivalent of my number, Justice League number 1 would have sold 400,000 copies. U.S. alone. U.S. direct market alone.
Yeah.
You're talking half a million up to 600,000 copies total when you do newsstand in UK. The fact that it broke 200,000 means probably 3 out of 4 stores under-ordered it. And that number is going to climb and climb in the coming weeks. But we'll talk about that next week. We're going to wrap up here now.
You're boring.
I'm not boring. I want to go home.
I want to go home too. But we got to give this to our listeners.
We've been recording for an hour. And we're 5 days late. So let's finish this, and we'll be back in 2 days, 3 days.
This is true.
Before you know it, it'll be Monday, and we'll be recording again.
Oh God.
If you have any questions, feel free to shoot us an email. We'll have a bunch of emails to read next week.
Whoa! Slow your outro.
The comic conspiracy.
Slow your outro.
What?
get your random comic.
No, there's no random comic.
There's a random comic.
My random comic pick this week is Justice League #1. You should read it. Brock's Flashpoint #5.
No, it's
All
not.
right. This is a special week. We don't have to have no random comic.
You're telling me what my random pick is?
There's no random comic pick this week.
Yes, there is. No. That's a staple. Don't go away from the staples. Pick a random comic pick of the week, and you can't pick Justice League.
The Comic Conspiracy at geekbox.net. You can
why?
visit us
Why are you
on
doing
the forums. Forums.geekbox.net.
Seriously, why?
Because we're done.
Well, no, we're not.
Yeah, we're done.
Pick a random comic.
No, this is fine. We're done. We're done for this week.
Why? Why do you got to do that?
I told you my random comic pick is Justice League #1.
Okay, so random comic pick of the week is Justice League #1. We've been talking about it the whole issue. Mine is not Flashpoint #5.
If you really want to do this, Brock, go for it. I'm going to leave. You can shut down and close this out and upload it and everything yourself.
I'm consistent. That's what the listeners want, is consistency.
Well, they don't get it from this podcast as our thing.
No, I wanted to recommend We 3.
You can recommend it next week.
Well, no, I want to recommend something else next week.
Okay.
The hardcover came out recently. I still haven't read it yet, but it looks a lot interesting because I looked at a couple back issues.
Oh, so you want to recommend a book you've never read?
Same thing I did with Legion Lost, and it was awesome.
Okay, good to hear.
So my recommendation is We 3.
Okay.
Probably because I'll be reading it the next weekend.
I'll actually recommend We 3 in a few weeks or something like that.
Yeah, whatever.
So, okay.
All right, so anyway.
Sorry, Brock. Let's
you can contact us at a whole bunch of places on the internet, on a phone. You can send us snail mail.
The Comic Conspiracy.
Have we gotten snail mail for this?
No.
Wow.
Yeah, our address is on the website if you want to check it out. You want to send us real mail, non-internet mail. You can visit,
no anthrax, please.
You can visit comicsconspiracy.biz. That's our website. Geekbox.net. That's the Geekbox website. That's where this podcast is hosted. You can see us also on the Geekbox episodes. Pretty much I'm on there every week. Brock's on there occasionally. I haven't been on recently. You should come on.
Yeah, it's been a little weird with the school starting and Brody and stuff. It's kind of like I got to get permission.
Yeah. If you have any other questions, like I said, shoot us an email. We'll be back next week for a more normal episode as hopefully we get back on a regular schedule.
Yeah. Check out my blog, conspiratorbrock.blogspot.com. And if you are interested in buying digital comics, please go to comicconspiracy.biz.
This is the whole thing. We'll talk about this next week. We got the digital comic thing set up. I might as well mention it right now. We'll talk about it more next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more next week. But
if you want, you can go to digital.comicsconspiracy.biz. You can go on the Comixology website through that link. You can buy your Justice League #1 and your Flashpoint #5 and other books that aren't Marvel on there because Marvel's not part of it. And if you buy through that link, hey, we get a little bit of a cut. It's actually kind of cool. I actually bought Justice League #1 on my Droid phone today and gave it a little whirl. We'll talk all about this stuff next week, though.
Yes, but the link's on our website. It'll be on my blog.
Yeah.
Check it out. If you buy digital comics, please support us and click through that link.
Yeah. And you should buy the physical comics if you like those too, because those are awesome as well. We'll be back in 72 hours.
I need a beer.
Well, we're 21. We can have as many beers as we want.
Sweet. Let's do a bar crawl.